everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Brave Pointers. My name is Terry Mays, and today we're going to be discussing Progress's Open Edge Replication product. I have with me today Paul Coveney.
Hi, everyone.
Paul, I've been hearing an awful lot lately about the Open Edge Replication product. Can you tell me a little bit about that product and what it does?
Sure. Open Edge Replication, or Fathom if you're on Progress version 9, is a Progress licensed product that allows you to copy your database, your production database, real-time to a target database, where you can keep it on this, or you could keep it on the same machine, on the separate machine on the same network, or even across the WAN.
How is that different from the old AI replication that we've all known to love?
It's different, but let's step back a second and talk about the database in terms of disaster recovery. There's three forms of disaster recovery you would use: is lukewarm spare, a warm spare, or a hot spare. Now, in essence, a lukewarm spare is basically a backup copy of your database along with backup copies of the AI files that have been taken since then, stored on a separate machine. That there's no license requirements for that. You just simply are making sure that you've got those files copied off to a safe location, so that if you lose your production server, you've got the backup copy to restore, the AI files to apply, and then you come up. Now that can be quite a bit of time to restore, so that's a lot of downtime to consider. On a warm spare, you kind of reduce all that time to restore because you've got a standing up copy of the database that you're taking those AI files that you've copied across and applying them to that database. However, the problem with that solution is that there's license requirements for that. So it gets to be expensive if you want to be able to keep that solution going. There's also a lot of scripting involved with things like rolling off the AIs from the production server, copying them across, getting them applied. It can be quite a bit of work.
Gotcha.
The hot spare, and this is where Open Edge Replication really shines, is the real-time copy of the database that's sitting over on another machine, streaming across a TCP/IP socket connection, taking the data from the source database to the target database, and simply, if you have a problem where you lose your production database, you just simply click over to the target database and you're good to go.
So why are customers purchasing OE replication then?
Mostly for the redundancy factor. They want to be able to recover their data up to the minute. They don't want to have to wait to be able to fail over. They want to keep their business moving. It's expensive downtime, and we all know that downtime can really be hard on a business, so they want that insurance. There's other reasons though, such as reporting or data warehousing. There's many different uses for OE replication.
Gotcha. In the old AI scripting days, we could, if you needed to keep up more than one target database, it was just a matter of copying over the AI files and applying those things. Does that same sort of model apply in an OE replication world?
Yeah, you can still do that. You can basically, there's a configuration file called a properties file, and you tell it within that properties file where the database is, what it's called, what port it's listening on, and basically you streaming data to that database wherever it is. So you can set up as many of those as you want and have it stream across to each and every one of them.
So many targets, one source to many targets.
Exactly.
That's cool. Can you give me an overview? I mean, can you tell me how all this stuff works?
Yeah, essentially what happens is you've enabled your production database for source replication, and then you take a backup of that, restore it over to the target side, and then with the configuration files in place, you simply start up the databases in multi-user mode, and they initiate a socket connection between them, and then it starts streaming the data through the AI of the source database to the target database.
That sounds pretty easy. Are there any drawbacks that a customer needs to consider when running Open Edge replication?
Yeah, there's definitely a few new things to consider. Mainly is that you now have two databases that you now have to start and stop in a maintenance window, or if you have an outage, you have the target database to consider. That has to be restarted in order for replication to reinitiate. Also, there's now that replication process has to be monitored to make sure it's staying up and running. That's something new. There's a new command called dsrutil. It's similar to the pro-util that everybody's familiar with. You basically dsrutil, database name, status, and that will return a code, and then you can script around the code to respond to it as appropriate.
So what you're saying is I mean, if in a normal production environment, if my production database goes down for some reason, I need to consider the target database before starting that guy right back up.
Exactly.
And there's probably some DSR util commands similar to the pro utils that we can script around to tell us if replication is running or if it's failed and things of that nature.
Exactly. And also there's a new status for the AI files. It's called locked. Everybody's familiar with being full, busy, or empty, and normal AI scripts will look for full ones and copy those off and mark them empty. Well, with replication, in order to ensure that everything stays in sync, it keeps the AI files locked until the replication is completed. Once it's completed the replication from that particular AI file, it will switch it back automatically to a full status, and then your normal AI scripts will take over and move off those AI files as needed.
Gotcha. So if I were, you have to have AI enabled for all of this replication plus the replication stuff to work. So basically, if I'm in an old AI world and I apply this product, then I'm really looking to just get rid of all my apply side scripts, right?
Exactly. This takes care of that aspect. You don't need to worry about apply side scripts at all. You just need to make sure that you've taken care of the AIs on the production side. There is one other drawback that you need to consider too. When you have a site replication enabled for your database, for your source production database, and let's say you go to take a backup of that and restore it for development or test, you want to make sure that you disable site replication as part of the process of the restore. Otherwise, it'll try and start up and think that it's still a replication database, and that could be problematic.
Gotcha. So can you give me just kind of a quick recap of what OE replication really is then?
Sure. OE replication is real-time copying of the database via socket connection to a remote location. It's a way of guaranteeing that you've got data up to the date, up to the minute, and you just simply have to turn on that target database as your primary database, switch your clients over to it, and you're good to go.
In the old AI world, you really couldn't start a broker or use that target database in any way. What about in the OE replication mode? Is that database now available for us for reporting or things like that?
Well, there is a broker running against the target database, and it uses the port connection that broker starts on in order to be able to connect and talk and receive the data from the source database. But you can't really connect to that target database and use it the way you would think that you would normally be able to. That's in the base model of OE replication. However, there is a plus version of the product which allows 4GL and SQL connections that come into the target database and allow you to be able to read that data. Those are read-only connections, so you don't have to worry about affecting the status of your target database, and everything stays in sync.
So I could offload if I had the plus product, I could offload all my ODBC connections or all those report-only type of connections to not only a separate database, to even a separate box and run all that stuff?
You can do that as long as they don't try and do any kind of write to the database. As long as they stay read-only, you can move them off, and it's actually recommended that you do so that you can keep the performance of your source production database as good as you can.
And so I guess OE replication then is a good disaster recovery product.
Definitely is. That was what it was primarily designed for. It allows you to recover data up to the minute, so you definitely want to be able to implement that product as much as possible.
Okay. And so let's assume for a minute that I was the IT director, CIO of a company, and I'm charged with designing the disaster recovery plan for my company. Sounds like I have the database covered with OE replication. What other things should I consider when designing that plan?
Well, there's a lot of different parts to an application and an entire disaster recovery plan. OE replication only takes care of your database. You still want to consider moving over copies of your application code as it gets updated, any configuration changes to the system, anything else that would be outside the scope of the database. You'll still want to look at that and either come up with tools or write your own tools to take care of that.
And I assume we have to also do our own considerations for if we had to fail over to the replicated side. Progress doesn't know, do they provide any tools for that, for a client connection to auto fail over to that box, or is that all managed independently?
That's got to be managed independently. OE replication is good, but it's not good enough to take care of everything for you. So,
appreciate you stopping by and chatting with us today about that.
My pleasure.
If you have any questions about OE replication from a setup perspective or a management perspective, feel free to call us here at BravePoint. And also look for future Brave Pointers at www.bravepointers.com. Thank you very much.